What if the moment everyone laughed at was actually the moment everything got exposed? Because this time it wasn't just shade, it wasn't just reality TV chaos. And it definitely wasn't old drama coming back for ratings. When Rasheeda's mother picked up that umbrella again and went after Kirk Frost, the room froze. Not because people hadn't seen it before, but because of who reacted next. The cameras didn't miss it. In the background, almost off guard, Jasmine Washington was caught laughing. Not shocked, not uncomfortable, laughing. And that split second changed the entire narrative, because umbrellas don't come out randomly. They come out when disrespect hits a breaking point, when patience runs out, when someone decides that words aren't enough anymore. Rasheeda's mom has never been subtle, but this time felt different. This wasn't about the past. This wasn't about old mistakes, this felt personal, current, unfinished, and Jasmine laughing, that's where things get uncomfortable, because laughter in moments like this isn't accidental, it's reaction, it's confirmation. It's someone feeling safe enough to enjoy chaos they're not supposed to be part of. And once the internet saw it, the question wasn't why did the umbrella come out again? The question became, why did that moment feel funny to her? Was this just reality TV theatrics, or proof that some people in this situation know more than they're letting on? Because when family members are reacting with anger, and outsiders are reacting with amusement, it usually means two very different realities are colliding. And once that collision happens on camera, there's no editing it away. This wasn't just another outburst, it was a signal. And by the time the umbrella went up, the real damage had already been done, quietly, in the reactions no one was supposed to notice. So the real question is, was this about protection or exposure? To understand why the umbrella came out again, you have to understand that this wasn't a random flash of anger. It was a response to a pattern, one that never actually ended, just went quiet long enough for people to pretend it had. For years, Rasheeda's mother has been the one constant that never softened. While others tried forgiveness arcs, family meetings, and moving forward conversations, she stayed where she always was, watching behavior, not promises. And when behavior doesn't change, patience doesn't regenerate, it erodes. This wasn't about reliving old trauma for the cameras. According to the way the moment unfolded, this felt like a final straw. Not a memory, a realization, because the tension in that room didn't start when the umbrella was raised. It started earlier, long before anyone stood up. When Kirk Frost speaks in these situations, there's a familiar rhythm. Controlled, defensive, just enough explanation to sound reasonable, but never enough accountability to feel resolved. It's a tone that suggests this again, rather than I understand why this hurt you. And for someone who has watched the same cycle repeat, mistake, apology, regroup, repeat, that tone isn't neutral, it's triggering. Rasheeda's mom has never hidden how she feels about Kirk. Her frustration has always been rooted in protection, not performance. She's not trying to win public opinion. She's trying to shield her daughter from patterns she's already seen play out. And when those patterns resurface, even subtly, the reaction is immediate. That's why the umbrella matters. The umbrella isn't just an object, it's a symbol. A line being crossed, it shows up when words have already failed, when respect feels optional, when someone decides they're done pretending this is just messy TV drama. This time, the energy was different. There was no buildup of shouting. No long argument, just tension sitting in the room, thick enough that everyone felt it. And when the umbrella came out, it wasn't impulsive, it was decisive, almost rehearsed by history. But what pushed this moment into something bigger wasn't the confrontation itself, it was the reaction across the room. While family members reacted with shock and anger, Jasmine Washington reacted with amusement, a smile, a laugh. A moment that suggested comfort in chaos she wasn't supposed to be comfortable in. That's what made people rewind. Because laughter in moments like this isn't accidental, it's revealing. It suggests distance from the emotional weight. It suggests insider confidence. And in situations where family members feel disrespected, laughter reads as disrespect multiplied. The camera didn't have to zoom in, the internet did the rest. The immediate question wasn't whether Jasmine should have laughed. It was why she felt safe enough to. Because safety in moments of conflict usually comes from one of two places, detachment or knowledge. And detachment doesn't usually look like enjoyment. This is where the history matters. Jasmine isn't just a bystander in this dynamic. Her presence has always complicated the emotional balance. And while the show often frames interactions as isolated incidents, the reactions tell a longer story, one where some people are still processing pain and others have already moved on emotionally. That imbalance creates tension fast. Rasheeda's mom didn't react to Jasmine directly, but her reaction existed in the same moment. Two emotional realities colliding on camera, one rooted in protection and frustration, the other in detachment and irony. And that collision made the umbrella moment unavoidable. Because when someone laughs at what you experience as disrespect, it doesn't just insult you, it confirms your fear, that your concern was valid, that your anger wasn't exaggerated, that the people you warned about don't take this seriously at all. This wasn't just about Kirk, it was about who felt comfortable in the room and who didn't. The reason this moment landed harder than previous confrontations is because it stripped away the idea that this was all in the past. If it were truly resolved, reactions would be neutral, calm, bored even. Instead, emotions were split sharply along lines of involvement. Family reacted with intensity. Outsiders reacted with amusement. That tells you everything. On shows like Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, moments like this often get dismissed as good TV. But real protection doesn't perform well for the camera. It disrupts scenes, it makes people uncomfortable. And that's exactly what happened here. The umbrella wasn't about violence, it was about boundaries. It was someone saying, "I've watched this long enough." And when boundaries get enforced publicly, reactions become evidence. Who laughs, who freezes, who defends, who stays silent. Those reactions are never random. By the time security stepped in and the moment passed, the damage was already done. Not to reputations, but to illusions. The illusion that this was settled. The illusion that everyone was on the same page. The illusion that time alone heals patterns. It doesn't, behavior does. And that's why this moment hit harder than the first umbrella incident, because it wasn't fueled by shock, it was fueled by confirmation. The umbrella got the headlines. But the laugh told the truth, because confrontations happen on reality TV all the time. Voices rise, objects get thrown, security steps in. Audiences are used to that. What they're not used to, and what they can't unsee once it happens, is a reaction that doesn't match the moment. That's why the camera catching Jasmine Washington laughing changed everything. It wasn't loud, it wasn't exaggerated. It was subtle enough to feel real, the kind of reaction that slips out when someone forgets they're being watched. And those are always the most revealing moments because they aren't curated, they aren't strategic, they're instinct. And instinct doesn't lie. In a room where tension was thick, where Rasheeda's mother was visibly angry, where family lines were clearly drawn, laughter stood out as defiance, not accidental defiance, emotional defiance. A signal that the chaos unfolding didn't feel threatening or upsetting to her. It felt entertaining. That's what made people rewind the clip, because laughter in moments like this usually comes from one of two places: distance or confidence. Distance means you don't feel emotionally involved. Confidence means you feel protected enough not to care about the fallout. And in this situation, distance doesn't quite fit. Jasmine wasn't a random cast member. She wasn't a neutral observer. Her history in this dynamic makes detachment unlikely, which leaves confidence, and confidence always raises questions. Confidence about what? Confidence from where? That's where the power shift becomes visible. While Kirk Frost stood in a familiar defensive posture, measured, controlled, almost resigned, Jasmine's reaction suggested comfort, not shock, not embarrassment, comfort, as if the situation unfolding confirmed something she already knew. That's why the laugh mattered more than the umbrella. The umbrella was an emotional reaction to disrespect. The laugh was a reaction to exposure. When someone laughs during confrontation, it often means the confrontation doesn't threaten them. They don't feel implicated, they don't feel at risk. They feel like observers, not participants, even when history says otherwise. And that disconnect is loud. For Rasheeda's mom, this moment wasn't just about Kirk anymore. It was about the realization that the people outside the family circle didn't carry the same emotional weight. While she was reacting from protection and frustration, others were reacting from detachment. That's insulting in a way words can't capture, because laughter in that context doesn't just minimize the conflict, it invalidates the pain behind it. It sends an unspoken message: this isn't that serious to me. And when you're dealing with years of unresolved hurt, that message hits harder than any argument. The camera didn't linger long, but it didn't need to. The internet slowed it down frame by frame. People noticed the timing, the expression, the way the laugh came out not after things calmed. Some felt threatened, some felt protective, some felt entertained. Those differences don't disappear after filming stops. They linger. By the time the scene moved on, the narrative had already shifted. This wasn't just about an umbrella anymore. It was about who felt safe enough to laugh. And why? Because safety in moments of conflict is revealing. It tells you who believes they'll face consequences and who doesn't. And once viewers saw that dynamic, they stopped asking whether Rasheeda's mom overreacted. They started asking what she was reacting to. In moments like this, what people don't do often matters more than what they do. According to how the scene unfolded, the real tension didn't peak when the umbrella came out. It peaked in the seconds after, when Kirk Frost had a chance to reset the room and didn't. No firm shutdown, no immediate boundary. No visible attempt to de-escalate beyond letting security handle it. And that absence spoke volumes. Body language tells the truth long before words ever do. Kirk's posture in that moment wasn't defensive in the way fear looks. It was familiar, grounded, almost resigned. The kind of stillness that comes from someone who has been in similar situations before and knows they'll pass. That kind of calm isn't neutrality, it's confidence in outcome. When chaos breaks out around you and your instinct isn't urgency, it usually means you don't feel personally threatened by the consequences. According to the read many viewers had, Kirk didn't look surprised. He didn't look rattled. He looked like someone waiting for the moment to end so the scene could move on. And when Rasheeda's mother reacted with visible anger, that contrast became even sharper. Her energy was protective, his was contained. That imbalance created a silent power shift in the room, one where emotion was isolated on one side and control remained on the other. What made the moment heavier was what didn't happen next. There was no public correction of Jasmine Washington's reaction, no visible discomfort. No, this isn't funny signal. Silence filled the gap, and silence in these situations acts like permission. Not permission for the behavior itself, but permission for the interpretation. When laughter goes unchecked during family conflict, it sends a message. This environment tolerates disrespect. Even if unintentionally, the lack of response validates it. And for someone already feeling unheard, that validation hits like confirmation. That's when frustration stops being about the original issue and starts being about the space itself. On Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, cast members often understand the power of moments. They know when to intervene and when to stay still. Staying still here wasn't passive, it was strategic. The scene would end. The cameras would cut. The fallout would land elsewhere. And it did, because when authority figures don't shut things down, responsibility shifts. It lands on the people reacting emotionally. Suddenly, they look like the problem, too loud, too aggressive, too much. Meanwhile, the calm party appears reasonable by comparison. That's a familiar pattern. The umbrella became the symbol people debated, but the silence around it shaped the narrative. Viewers started to notice the asymmetry. Who was expected to regulate their emotions and who wasn't? Who absorbed consequences and who stayed insulated? That insulation doesn't happen by accident, it's built through repetition, through knowing how scenes end. Through confidence that no matter how intense things look, the system resets afterward. And that confidence was visible in Kirk's restraint. Not concern, not urgency. Restraint. Restraint suggests control, and control suggests experience. The lack of escalation from his side didn't calm the room, it isolated the anger. It made Rasheeda's mom look like the only one reacting too much, even though the trigger wasn't hers alone. The environment allowed disrespect to linger without consequence. That's why the moment stuck, because people weren't just reacting to what happened, they were reacting to what was allowed to happen. Silence isn't empty in situations like this. It's directional, it points to where power sits and who's expected to adjust. And in that room, power didn't shift when the umbrella came out, it stayed exactly where it was. By the time the scene wrapped, viewers weren't asking whether the umbrella was too much. They were asking why the situation felt so familiar, why the same dynamics kept repeating. Why emotional reactions kept being framed as the problem while underlying behavior remained untouched. That's when the story stopped being about a single moment and started being about a pattern. By the time the scene ended, something subtle but permanent had changed. This wasn't just another viral clip from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. It felt heavier because viewers weren't reacting to the umbrella anymore. They were reacting to the pattern behind it. For a long time, moments like this were easy to dismiss. Too much emotion, too much yelling, too much interference from family. But this time, the context refused to disappear. The reactions around the umbrella told a clearer story than the confrontation itself. Public sympathy shifted because people noticed who was carrying emotional weight and who wasn't. Rasheeda's mother didn't look reactive, she looked exhausted. Exhausted from watching the same cycle repeat. exhausted from feeling like respect was optional, exhausted from realizing that the environment around her daughter hadn't actually changed, only quieted. That exhaustion is relatable. Viewers recognized it immediately because it's not unique to reality TV. It's what happens when boundaries are ignored long enough that enforcement starts to look extreme. The umbrella didn't feel random, it felt inevitable. At the same time, Kirk Frost's calm started reading differently. What once looked like maturity began to feel like insulation, not growth, distance from consequences. Especially when moments of disrespect weren't corrected in real time. And then there was Jasmine Washington. Her laugh became the quiet catalyst for everything that followed. It reframed the entire situation. It suggested that what was painful for the family had become entertainment for others. And once that perception set in, viewers stopped questioning the reaction and started questioning the environment. That's why this moment stuck. Because people weren't debating what happened, they were debating why it keeps happening, why apologies don't seem to resolve anything, why tension resets instead of heals, why the same people are always expected to absorb the emotional cost. Patterns become obvious when reactions repeat. And in this case, the pattern wasn't aggression, it was endurance. Endurance from the people who keep trying to protect, explain, and hold things together. The umbrella symbolized the end of that endurance. This moment hit differently because it stripped away the illusion that time alone fixes disrespect. It doesn't, only accountability does. And when accountability feels absent, reactions get louder, not because people want attention, but because they want to be heard. By the end of the episode, the audience wasn't divided anymore. They were aligned on one thing: this wasn't just about drama. It was about boundaries that had been ignored long enough to turn enforcement into spectacle. And once the audience sees that, they don't unsee it. At this point, the umbrella isn't the story. The reactions are, because when emotions clash this hard, the real truth shows up in the details people try to downplay. Who laughs, who stays silent, who steps in, and who lets things slide. So here's the real question. Was this an overreaction, or the result of years of ignored boundaries? Why did laughter feel more revealing than anger? And why did silence speak louder than words? Because moments like this don't happen in isolation. They're built over time, through patterns that never fully change, just pause long enough for people to pretend they did. Some people saw chaos, others saw confirmation. And once confirmation hits, reactions stop being about control and start being about protection. Now it's your turn. Do you think Rasheeda's mom went too far or not far enough? Should Kirk have shut the moment down immediately? And what did Jasmine's reaction really say about where she stands? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this clip before it disappears from the timeline, because the loudest moments on reality TV aren't always the most revealing. Sometimes it's the laugh you weren't supposed to notice.